You have to go to a job interview, a doctor's appointment, or you simply want to go on a weekend trip. You walk toward your car, keys in hand, but before you even open the door, your hands start to sweat. You feel an oppressive knot in your stomach. You look at the traffic, hear the honking in the distance, and a wave of panic completely washes over you. In the end, you make up an excuse, call a cab, or just decide to stay home. We live in a world that assumes driving is a basic skill. Almost like walking, people casually tell you, "It's just practice. It's no big deal," or "You just need to overcome your fear." These falsely optimistic phrases only manage to make you feel misunderstood, useless, or ashamed. There is a mistaken belief that being afraid to drive is a sign of cowardice or a lack of skill. The 9 psychological and neuroscientific pillars. 1. Amygdala hijack in traffic. Let's start at ground zero of fear, the limbic brain. The amygdala is your body's alarm system, designed to react to real survival threats, like a predator. Driving at high speed surrounded by tons of moving metal is, biologically speaking, a risky situation. The problem is that in a person with Amaxophobia, the amygdala undergoes an emotional hijack. When the brain perceives the car as a life-threatening danger, the amygdala completely overrides the prefrontal cortex, the rational part responsible for logic. In an instant, your body is flooded with cortisol and adrenaline. Your heart rate skyrockets, your muscles tense up, and your vision narrows into tunnel vision. You aren't being dramatic. Biologically, your brain believes you are fighting for your life in the middle of the jungle. 2. The fallacy of absolute control. On a psychological level, the fear of driving feeds on a deep cognitive distortion, the need for absolute control. When you walk down the street, you feel like you govern your own steps. However, on a highway, your safety depends largely on the decisions of hundreds of strangers traveling all around you. People with Amaxophobia tend to overprocess this lack of control. Thoughts like, what if the driver next to me falls asleep? Or, what if someone slams on the brakes? Begin to surface. This intolerance to uncertainty saturates working memory. Your mind's attempt to monitor every millimeter of potential danger ultimately causes cognitive exhaustion that paralyzes your ability to react. 3. The footprint of trauma and vicarious learning. Where does this fear come from? In behavioral psychology, we know it doesn't appear out of nowhere. Often it is anchored to classical conditioning. If you suffered a traffic accident in the past, your brain associated the car, neutral stimulus, with panic or physical pain, unconditioned stimulus. But there is another way to acquire it: vicarious learning. If you grew up with parents who suffered greatly while driving, who yelled in panic amidst traffic, or who constantly repeated how dangerous cars are, your childhood mind absorbed that narrative. You registered the car as a hostile space long before touching a pedal for the first time. 4. The vicious cycle of psychological avoidance. The most natural behavior in the face of fear is to flee. You decide not to drive today, you let someone else take the wheel, or you change your route to a longer but slower one. The moment you avoid the car, you experience immense relief. Your anxiety drops to 0 immediately. However, in behavioral science, we know that avoidance is the fuel of fear. Every time you run away, you are confirming to your amygdala that the car is a real danger from which you have saved yourself. By not exposing yourself, you prevent habituation and the extinction of the fear from occurring. Avoidance gives you 5 minutes of peace today, but sentences you to a fear twice as large tomorrow. 5. Agoraphobia and the fear of trapped spaces. Interestingly, for many people, Amaxophobia is not a fear of the car itself, but a manifestation of agoraphobia. The fear of having a panic attack in a place where escaping or getting help would be difficult. This explains why the fear intensifies drastically on multi-lane highways, in tunnels, on bridges, or in the middle of a massive traffic jam. The car transforms into a cage. The mind begins to hyper-focus on its own physical sensations, unleashing the fear of fear, the terror of losing control, fainting, or suffering a collapse in the middle of a fast lane without an immediate escape route. 6. The sustained attention fatigue effect. Driving requires what we call sustained and divided attention in cognitive psychology. You have to check the rearview mirror, control your speed, calculate distances, and predict pedestrian movements simultaneously. When you are calm, these processes become automated thanks to the brain's basal ganglia. But under the effects of anxiety, this automation breaks down. You try to process every tiny action manually and analytically, using up all your prefrontal energy. The result is attention fatigue. You become overwhelmed in a matter of minutes. Visual and auditory stimuli hit you too hard, leaving you feeling completely incapable of processing the information from your surroundings. 7. External locus of control and learned helplessness. Personality psychology studies how we attribute the causes of what happens to us through the concept of locus of control. People with a markedly external locus of control tend to believe that their fate and safety are entirely in the hands of chance, traffic, or the aggressiveness of other drivers. This can lead to a state of learned helplessness, the painful belief that no matter how well you drive or how many classes you take, you are a defenseless victim of road circumstances. Flipping the switch toward an internal locus of control, recognizing your technical capacity to handle unexpected events, is vital to deconstructing this mental block. 8. Social anxiety behind the windshield. Sometimes the fear is not of crashing or dying, but of being judged. Yes, the car is also a space for social interaction. The fear of stalling the engine at a red light, taking too long to park while others wait, or being honked at by an impatient driver activates the same neural circuits as the panic of public speaking. People with social anxiety tendencies project their fears onto the rest of the drivers. They feel that every car around them is a harsh critic ready to judge their incompetence. This perceived social pressure elevates muscle tension and sabotages fine motor skills, ironically causing the very mistakes they so desperately fear making. 9. The miscalibration of proprioception and virtual distance. Finally, let's analyze a neurophysiological factor, proprioception, which is the brain's ability to know the exact position of our body parts in space. When we drive, the brain performs an amazing neurocognitive trick. It extends your body schema to include the boundaries of the car. You perceive the size of the car as if it were your own body. In states of high anxiety, this spatial calibration becomes distorted. The car feels much bigger than it actually is. The distances to adjacent lanes seem minuscule, and curves feel sharper. As visual and spatial perception warp, the brain defends itself by sending braking and panic impulses in response to stimuli that, in objective reality, are at a completely safe distance. So let's look back for a moment. After reviewing this mental X-ray, do you still think you are a coward for being afraid to drive? Of course not. Your fear is proof that your brain has a sophisticated protection system, but one that is currently miscalibrated and sees threats where there is only asphalt. Having Amaxophobia is not a life sentence. Neuroplasticity proves that your brain can learn to reassociate the steering wheel with safety, calm, and autonomy. It's not about magically eliminating anxiety overnight. It's about learning to sit right next to it, gripping the wheel firmly and showing your mind that you are safe. Little by little, with small but steady steps, through gradual exposure and deep compassion for your own pace, you will enjoy the scenery again. The road is not your enemy, it is the stage for your freedom. Take care of your mind and see you in the next video.